welcome. If you have any questions you'd like Kurt to answer throughout the call, feel free to just drop them in the chat and I will work them into my list. How you doing, Kurt? First question.
Doing good.
Well, I will start with a little bio on Kurt. So, for those of you that don't know, Kurt was one of the two founding partners for First Option when we opened back in 2004. Sorry, Kurt, I'm reading your bio and completely lost my spot. As a partner of First Option Mortgage, he believes our responsibility includes establishing our organization's long-term vision and mission and overseeing our business practices to make sure that our goals and values are met. I happen to know he lives in Woodstock, Georgia. He's the proud father of two beautiful daughters and a proud grandfather as well. So welcome, Kurt. Anything I missed?
Well, I do have a stepson, Cody, who works for us.
I knew that, yes.
And I am a proud grandparent.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for being our featured leader today. We are going to start with my very favorite first question because it's the first thing you do every morning. Can you tell us about your morning routine?
Yeah, I mean, for those of you that don't know, I am an early riser. I set an alarm every night, but never needed to get up. I usually get up between 4:30 and 5 o'clock, and my routine is really similar. Once I'm ready, grab a cup of coffee, jump in the car, head to the office. And I like to get in early just because it gives me some clear time to think, kind of catch up on emails from the previous day. Seems like I get 300 to 500 emails a day, so sometimes I don't get through all of them throughout a day. So it just gets me that jump start on the day, and hopefully by 8:30 when things start to heat up, I'm in a position to be able to take care of what I need to do.
Nice. Now I know you have a pretty decent drive into the office. It's definitely not a short commute. Are you a music person, podcast, just silence in the morning because the sun
No,
isn't even up at that hour?
It's basically just talk radio, trying to catch up on the day, find out what's going on, and then obviously traffic news here in Atlanta.
Always gotta stay on the beat of that so you don't run right into an accident. So we'll start with some of the more fun questions. What would you say are a few of your strengths as a leader?
First and foremost, I think that you always have to lead by example. There's nothing that I won't do within the organization that I would expect anybody else to do. I also think that, patience is critical because you need to listen to what's happening out in the marketplace and then kind of implement what you're able to implement and make the appropriate changes to make everybody feel more comfortable.
Okay, how would you say that your coworkers and peers and all of us, how do you think we would describe your managerial style and leadership style?
I would hope to think that they would think that I was patient. That again, I'm one to listen before reacting and try to take in the information that I receive to make decisions. I would hope to think that that I was fair, and if not, again, I would hope to think that people would come and talk to me in the event that that was not the case.
So fairness, patience, it sounds like. Are there any other like values or qualities that you would say are really important to you as a leader?
I think trust is key. I think that, you have to trust people. And hopefully, I can relay that on to others. But again, I mean, like I said, I think that my biggest, passion is our industry. And, we all have bad days. But I mean, there isn't a day that I'm not still excited to come into the office and challenge the day for what it's worth. Some days are better than others. But at the end of the day, when I leave, hopefully I feel like I've made an impact on the day.
Okay, I like that outlook. That's very positive, something that I and probably a lot of us should work on, keeping a positive attitude when it isn't the best day. So Clay has a great question. He says, you've seen it all in the business. How have you changed as a leader over the years?
I don't think I stress out as much. I think that, right now is a prime example. We're going through some change within the industry, and there's probably a lot of people that have never experienced this. But being in the industry for 25 plus years, I've seen it several times. And the good news is, I don't stress as much today as I did years ago. And the other side of it is, knowing what I know about the business, I think that we're still in a very good position, even though it may be more challenging than it has been over the last couple of years. I think we're in a great position to take opportunity at this point. And, when things turn, which I expect within the next 6 to 12 months, things will be really, we'll be in a great position to kind of take it to the next level.
Okay, so in the 25 years you've been in the industry, can you tell us about a time that you failed and what you learned from it?
Well, my biggest failure is at home with my wife because I always fail there. She tells me about it weekly. Within the industry, as far as failures are concerned, I think that one of the things that I've been blessed with is that first and foremost, timing was always on our side. If you kind of look back at the past, back in 2007, 2008, when things started to deteriorate really quickly in our industry, within a month prior to it really falling apart, we received um, our Ginny approval, our HUD approval. And at that point in time, it was timing that kind of helped us through that transitional period. Had we not had that, it would have been much more difficult to make it through. So um, I- again, go back to your original question because I think I got sidetracked on that. But
You need me to repeat the original
yeah,
question?
yeah, yeah.
Um, can you tell us about a time that you failed and learned something?
Failure. Yeah, I mean, we fail all the time. I think a lot of times, I would probably say most recently is probably in communication, being open and honest, and kind of, relaying that information on to others, especially executives that you work with. Because if you're not, it's hard for them to understand where you're coming from. So I think that's probably my biggest failure is properly communicating with people.
Okay. Um, Stephen has submitted a question. He would like to know if you have any professional 5 and 10 year goals for yourself and or for the company.
I mean, obviously, I think we're in a great position today. I think, from a 5 year goal, I've talked it over with Alvin and Sohail. We'd love to see, us double our size. And what I mean by double our size is production wise. I don't think we need to double our size from an employee count standpoint because I think we're creating a lot of efficiencies moving forward, because I think we can do a lot more today with a lot less employees. That's not saying that we would alleviate any of the current employee structure. I just think that we'll be able to do a lot more in the future than what we are doing today with the same infrastructure that we currently have.
Cool. Well, I think that's something that we all would be excited about and are excited to see the company grow and be a part of it. Um, Lindsay would like to know what's the best piece of advice you've ever received that impacts your day to day.
I think the best piece of advice is always listen. Don't prejudge a situation. Always look into it and see, what is it that the underlying issue is, and then address it with those that are involved, and keep an open mind. Um, I think that people are quick to judge, and I think there's always two sides to every story. So I think the important thing is to make sure that you listen, do your research, and then come to a conclusion and then have that discussion with those involved.
Okay. What would you say is the hardest part about owning a company
I think
from
it's
actually?
I the hardest part is, well, I mean, there's so many hard parts to owning a company, but I think the challenge is trying to mesh all the personalities that you deal with. because everybody has a different way of looking at things, and it's coming to a kind of like a middle road with everyone to make sure that the end all goal is still achieved. I think that's the biggest challenge. I will say, and again, I've said this in numerous executive meetings, I do believe that we do have an all-star team here. I worked in this industry for 25 plus years, and one of the things that I think we have today that I never had previously was, just the support staff that I can rely on, that I don't have to worry about certain aspects anymore. Um, if I take a look at just like my Kevin, my Clay, Mike over in secondary, and then also, working with Alvin and Soho, I would have to tell you, if there was any one thing during my time within the industry that was a game changer for me was having those two guys come on board, because I think they bring a unique talent, which we all complement one another very well. So that's that part of my excitement about where we are today is due to primarily those guys being partners with me.
Okay. What would you say in your career so far has been the most memorable moment? Like, is there one specific story you can pinpoint or something that just
Recently, I would have to say the Game Changer Summit was one of those proud moments of where it was a culmination of what we've been working towards over the last several years, and just the excitement that I saw, and it just made me extremely proud of where we've come. So, I mean, that's probably the most recent.
oh, I'm honored. Um, would you say that you have a mentor, whether now or when you're coming up in the industry, and what kind of things did they teach you about yourself and about how to succeed?
I think I've had several along the way. Even past partners taught me a lot about what this industry is all about. I would say my main mentor was obviously my father. He was a blue collar, hardworking individual. Got up before I went to school in the morning, came home pretty much when I was going to bed at night as when I was a child. So I just, he instilled in me that, if you want to get something in life, you got to work hard to get there. And I think that set the foundation of where I am today. But I mean, there's numerous people within our industry that I've learned so much from. And again, I would just tell you that any time that you can communicate and learn something from somebody within our industry, take that and store that, because it's critically important. It may not be important today, but it will be someday in the future. And again, a lot of times you'll fall back on that information.
So, being a leader in the company, and having been in the industry for so long, when there's conflict, whether it's your team or the company on a bigger scale or anything like that, how do you handle conflict? What do you think is the best way to kind of get those conflicts resolved and the team working together again?
I think you have to be patient with the situation. I think that, reacting quickly, it does not always solve the problem. I think what you need to do is analyze the situation, figure out what the underlying issue is, and then have conversations surrounding the conflict to come to resolution. For those of you that don't know, and thank God we don't have a whole lot today as we did in the past, but a lot of the consumer complaints would end up on my desk, and 9 times out of 10, they just wanted somebody to have a conversation with, explain the issues that they were confronted with, and again, a lot was because of poor communication. So I think just having that ear, listening, taking time to evaluate, and then making a decision from that point forward, I think it proves to work itself out the best.
Well, conflict is not the most fun thing to talk about or deal with. So, a bit more of a fun question. How do you relax or have fun when you're not waking
Um,
up at 5:30 to come to the office?
Funny thing is, I wake up that early on the weekends as well. There's several things I like to do. First and foremost, for those of you that don't know me, I love to boat. I like to be out on the lake. That's one place that I can actually kind of just unwind and not really think about the day. I love gardening. I love being out in the yard. You know, I love spending time with my grandbabies now. So those are the kinds of things that really, really make me happy.
Do you think work-life balance is really important? Are you one of those people that's able to really just shut it down and I'm home, this is my home time, I'm not thinking about work? Or are you not
I
as
I so first, let me answer this two ways. Do I believe it's critically important? Absolutely. Is it hard for me? Yes, it is. I think that, technology today, it lends its hand to always being connected, right? And since we have offices, as far west as Las Vegas, a lot of times my phone doesn't stop until 9, 10 o'clock at night. Is it hard? To put it down, yeah, it is. But I've done better over the last couple of years, being able to actually like just shut things down once I get home. And once I turn my computer off at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, I'm usually disconnected. I'll just deal with it the following morning. But yes, it is important. I think that those that are struggling with it, trying to focus on it, because I think you'll become more productive if you do have that good work-life balance.
okay. So kind of back to the more your career-based questions, what would you say was the biggest leap of faith you've taken in your
I,
career?
yeah, so my biggest leap of faith probably would have been when I moved to Atlanta to open a branch for the mortgage company. When we moved here, it was new. Both my wife and my family is still back up in St. Louis. We moved to Atlanta knowing no one. And we had a 3-month-old baby when we did it. So that was probably the biggest challenge. I will tell you that it was probably the best decision I ever made, because it allowed me to kind of like reach the goals that I had set for myself. Because it just opened up some doors. And the distance part with the family, it worked out as well. You never know how that's going to work out. But it did. I mean, so, looking back on it, it was a decision I'm happy with.
If you could kind of talk to your younger self, is there something that you wish someone would have told you along your career journey that now looking back would have been, not to use the word game changer again, but would have been kind of a great piece of advice for someone just starting out?
Yeah, I think, probably not to stress out so much. At the end of the day, as long as you do what you think you should be doing and you give it 110%, I think at the end of the day, everything ends up working out. So, don't sweat the little things. Don't stress about stuff too much. And if you do need help, ask for help. Don't be afraid to.
Is there someone that you would dedicate your success to?
There's several people, as I mentioned before. I think I had, several mentors along the way. Um, a funny story is if you would have asked me when I was graduating college, are you going to go into the mortgage industry? I would have said no. What's that? I would not even known. But I fell into the industry, and I did have good leaders from a company that I had worked for previously that put me through a management training program and ultimately sent me here to Atlanta. There were several people in that organization, some of which I still stay connected with today, that are still doing, similar things. But they were, I guess, the foundation of me getting to where I am today. But like I said, there were several influencers along the way to kind of direct me in my path.
Alvin has requested if you could give some words of advice for the people new to the business and new to First Option.
Yeah, I would say, well, first and foremost, if you're new to the business, you got to give it time. This business, it has its ups, it has its downs. But at the end of the day, most people that I've encountered that have been in the mortgage business stay in the mortgage business because it can be so rewarding. Build relationships daily because ultimately at the end of the day, that's where, not only your business referrals will come from, but it'll also help you with the connections that you need to kind of further your career down the road.
Okay. And Russell would like to know what your most memorable moments have been as a grandfather thus far.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. And it changes daily every time I see my grandchild. It's just seeing her, right now, only because my newest granddaughter, she's only 4 months old. It's just seeing the change, from the time that I had first met her, which I had COVID when she was born. So I didn't get to see her, but the first day I did see her was on my birthday on May 25th. And it's unique every time because she seems to be changing, constantly. My other granddaughter, who's 3, is still back up in St. Louis, and I only get to see her a couple of times, a year, but we do get to talk. It's just, they grow so quickly. I think the important thing is take it all in. Cherish every moment because before you know it, they'll be in college and off and married.
So I just have a couple more questions. So if anyone else has any they'd like to ask her, be sure to put it in the chat. But my second to last is, as a leader, what skills do you continue to work on that you're, maybe aren't your biggest strengths, but that you're working on to just continue growing and becoming a better leader?
I think one of my biggest weaknesses, public speaking has never been my forte. I'll be the first to tell you, when I get in front of large crowds, I kind of stiffen up and kind of freak out. Um, so obviously that's something that I still want to continue to work on. Also, there's so much more to learn about our business. It's constantly changing. So, staying ahead of that. And then, the communication piece, to continue to work on the communication piece, because I think that, ultimately at the end of the day is the most critical part of what we do.
Okay. And my last question, if you weren't in the mortgage business,
Hmm.
what would you be doing?
Funny you ask. I always wanted to be a dentist.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I mean, back, like I said, I mean, I didn't grow up in a very wealthy family, and our we didn't have the ability, or I didn't have the path that would have allowed me to go down that chosen path. But that being said, I was always fascinated with the dentistry industry, and I still to this day love going to the dentist.
Who loves going to the dentist?
I know it's a little weird, but I do.
Hey, whatever makes you happy. Well, that is the last question I had. Nothing else has come through the chat, but thank you so much, Kurt, for being our featured leader and for giving us some insight into your background and your leadership style. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We will have another session next month, second Tuesday of the month at 2 p.m. So be on the lookout for details on that. And as always, if there's someone on your team who didn't get a chance to join, we will post the recording on My Connect, so you'll be able to access it there. If not later today, then tomorrow. And thank you so much, Kurt, and thank you everyone for joining.
All right, Alex. Thank you. Thanks, guys.